Hello, just a quick video on our current scenario with this power situation. So you can see we're still got our solar, as I covered in a previous video, and I reviewed our post-fire. Over here we got some solar that we purchased before the fire. That's our next array, so we still got to install that, dodgily stacked. I wanted to do a quick video on the Solark. So we previously had a Solark AK, much better, mature install than this. So this is really an outdoor Solark. So this is kind of a new version. We contacted Solark just to say that our old 8K had melted up, so we no longer needed the support or the upgrades that they tend to call you about now and then. And they said they were coming out of this one, and this is kind of an early version they sent us. We've had it for a while. I've just about got it set up in this very janky setup. So basically just like a bush shelter build, tiny little sub panel, really just to get us power. I've got this little tent set up, so this is a cheap tent, so I've got a couple of batteries in there, and supposedly the previous Solarks, the 8K 12K, been through a lot of environmental testing. They're just not tested for kind of water ingress like rained on, and I've tried to present that here, you know, with this little bush shelter, and I can kind of drop this tarp over there, but just in case there is an abundance of moisture, this unit gives you a bit more peace of mind. So basically and there's a lot of videos on the Solark, but there is some design modifications on this guy. So this looks like there's less circuitry in this kind of lower area. I guess they've moved that circuitry up into the top section, which is a bit more protected, or maybe further back. They've got this flange, return flange here. So if water were to basically wander under there and get into this, it wouldn't go into the unit, it would just flow around. And then to meet with that flange as the door closes, they've got this seal, so that compresses against there. Other differences I can remember, I didn't have a 12K before, so some of this may be on the 12K, I'm not too sure. So they've got the battery cutoff, which was on the 12K, and it was exposed, so you get out without opening the door. There is a plastic panel that goes in here, so you can open it without touching anything by accident. So you got the battery cutoff now, which I kind of had anyway, that I added myself, but it's good to have that internal. You've got a lot more network connections. So this is for parallel mode, so the 12K has the ability to parallel the units. So this this unit's capable of, you know, so if you're going to go for a complete off-grid for a larger install, you can just have up to 8 or 9 units in parallel. So you can serial the load between all those. If you don't know the Solark, it's kind of an all-in-one system. So it'll manage your solar input with an MPT, the charger for the batteries, it'll do AC AC conversion. So it's basically a hybrid inverter. So it'll run basically from your panels straight through to the grid without actually just charging your batteries and going from the batteries to the grid like some inverters do. We mainly used it in off-grid mode, which was one of the reasons we kind of locked in on the 8K originally. It's very dynamic, and what we thought was, you know, in our temporary living situation, we buy something like this, which was expensive, and we can scale everything else up. So we started with only 10 kilowatt batteries, 3 kilowatt panel array, but this unit's capable of, you know, 3 or 4 times as that easily. And then now, because this is based on the 12K, we can also get more units. So it's kind of infinite almost for what we would ever want to do. Yeah, more about the change to this kind of outdoor version. So the PV switch, this used to be underneath, which is no longer underneath. So you can just get to that quite easily. The Wi-Fi plug used to be underneath, so now it's got this drip container, I guess, which will make sure the water doesn't get under there. Now you look at these fans and you think, oh, that's not waterproof. Water's just gonna get sucked in there. But that actually just runs straight through. And if the way of thinking about this is basically like a reverse conduit, and rather than the environment's outside, the environment goes inside, and all the electronics are outside inside of this box. So all that's in there really is metal that forms the conduit wall and acts as a heat sink. So the water, I mean, I'm guessing these fans are environmentally certified or something, or very easy to change if not. And then if any moisture does get in there, it's just basically within that conduit and can't really go anywhere, and will hopefully just evaporate. And that's the same throughout the whole back of the unit. So I guess that's the main design change, which is quite intrinsic in the whole unit really. It's no small alteration. So all the same specs as the 12K. The 12K is how much solar you can actually use. I think you can use more than that, but when you think about the whole system, about what you can utilize, I think you can have various inputs, but you can only really charge and use the 12K at once, if that's correct. Fantastic service. We had a couple of issues. You know, I'm not an electrician, but I did set it up all myself, took the risk, and you know, and I did call them, and they probably may not have had to support me as much, because I'm sure they're used to aiming this at electricians and kind of more the TO1 market rather than the consumer market. But they were always helpful, always helped me figure the problems out. Limitations we've had with this. I was pushing it a bit. I was welding, I was plasma cutting. Didn't really have problem doing those things individually, but when I would do them concurrently, like with the plasma welder, sometimes when the compressor would kick in, that kind of influx initially, that's kind of surge load would trip it. And I think a lot of the time it's because items that are only one leg and not two leg, it's really unbalanced. So you may get a huge influx between the 150 watt usage on one leg and then 5 kilowatt on the other. It's going to trip. So you really need to monitor that with what kind of devices you're using concurrently. I've been looking at stuff that I don't know if can alleviate that problem, like soft starts for my electric motors when we end up with a well for the compressor. There is some devices out there that you can connect directly to those motors, but they're quite expensive. They're like $300 each. So I don't even know if that would fix the problem. So there are some limitations to just throwing it in and thinking you can use everything you would use in your house all at the same time. You really need to scale the system with your use. But I think for anyone like us, this is the very basics, as you can tell. This is a disaster zone. I think that'll be the title for the movie. This is actually a wildfire did come through here, and we're just trying to put it all back together. This is our base camp now for what hopefully within a few months we'll be living here again, and then in the long term we'll be building a house over there. So this is going to allow us in the meantime just to have power for lights and charging, and hopefully we're waiting on kind of Starlink for internet, because our street up there has no infrastructure yet, because all the houses were lost. So we don't in the short term see any kind of electricity or internet coming close by. So we're hoping on Starlink. And with this, I've got another, quickly show these batteries. So this is the Shady batteries setup. So I got these cheap off one of the websites. You can buy cheap used batteries, and I actually got 8 of them. So this is just 2. So from new, this was 10 kilowatt. They said they're like 3 each with their kind of second-hand usage. So supposedly 6. Even if it's 5, we've got 20 kilowatt, which will be fine for us in the short term. We originally had these are LiPo 4. We originally had LiPo 4 cells from China. I think we had 10 kilowatt, 16 cells. They were fantastic. I had no hesitation whatsoever in the future to buying those again and putting in a larger amount. Using the Dali BMS, so that's 100. These batteries, it's more work in actually just digging into the wires and getting the breakdown for the BMS. Once you've done it once, it's not too difficult. So yeah, that allows us to, I've ran the welder on it, I've ran, charged the batteries all the time for all the tools, lights, no problem. So it's just really what we wanted at the moment. And then hopefully this doesn't feel good having an expensive unit outside like this, even if it is designed for the environment. So hopefully within a few weeks we'll have a more mature structure in place, which we used to have here. You can kind of see this used to be our little building for our inverter and batteries, and this was the base of it. The building was completely gone. So I was just breaking this up and disposing of the concrete. But yeah. So yeah, quick video on the Solark 12K in a disaster zone. I'm sure in larger disasters, if they want to get power and they just roll a bunch of these in, and they're pretty tough units. They're extremely well built, I can tell. I think a lot of their engineering team was in kind of military products, so they're very used to designing to those kind of regulations and standards, which gives you a lot of confidence. So look out there. There's a lot of great videos on these units with electricians who actually talk the talk, can go through them in detail. I'd check those out. And if you're looking for kind of an off-grid solution you can really scale up in the future, we can highly recommend it. Okay, have a good one.